one question I actually have, and I found that when I was able to start to let go deeper into it, your words during the Icaros went from actual language to more of like a glossolalia. Like it wasn't language. It wasn't, well, at least it wasn't like English anymore. Um, and maybe that was just my perception of it, or that was really happening. Was that really happening? That's my question to you. Like as I was letting myself drift deeper into it, your language would shift from this words to sounds. It was different. But then when I was struggling and I'd come out of it, it would shift back to words again. Then you'd help me go back in, and then your languaging would shift again. For anyone listening to this, like, I'm going to be completely transparent and 100% honest with my experience right here. And you just heard what Hamilton said. So I participated in this ceremony. I think I did two of them, I believe, where you would do the live stream, you'd come on, and then you'd kind of do a little explanation, kind of like that almost, I think, and then we would pause, and then I'd go and take my I'd have my cannabis, you know what I mean? I'd smoke cannabis and then put on my headphones and nice stereo headphones, and I'd lie down in my room like I had it, I was approaching it with as much reverence as I possibly could, because I really genuinely exploring these practices. So I lie down, and then you would start with your Icaros and your drumming, and I even emailed you guys afterwards, because the way I can only describe it is that it was impossible. Because what happened was, I was in there, and if you've ever been into a shamanic trance before, especially with drumming and Icaros, you kind of have to let yourself get swept into it and really surrender into it, which can be challenging sometimes. Like, our egoic minds, our minds don't want to necessarily go with it. So that's like sort of like the work that has to be done during these processes. And everyone has different capabilities of doing that. And even on different days, I do, like some days, boom, it's easy. And other days I really struggle with it. So there's two main anecdotes I want to share here. And the one was, there was one time where you would be drumming, and then you'd be singing Icaros, but you'd also be kind of just peppering in language with the music that was, you were literally inside my head. Because I practice floating, and I fly in this float tank, and I use that a lot as a way of practicing that surrendering element and going into different states of consciousness. And so while I was in this one ceremony, I was like, okay, just do what you do when you float, just relax and float. And then you literally started to start singing, floating in outer space, and in my mind, because I was like, I'm trying to float, and you were talking to me, and then I was getting stuck, and I was kind of getting hung up, because my mind was like, oh my God, he's like freaking speaking exactly what I'm thinking. And then you would be like, you're really hung up on floating, and like you're kind of like, you were like talking, like you were acknowledging that I was stuck. You were actually singing along that I was stuck, and I'm like, it was just impossible. It was, in anything I would think, you would kind of like, you were responding back to me. And I mean, I don't have this was 4 or 5 years ago, so I don't have the exact verbiage, but I remember you were responding directly back to me.
Yeah.
And then one question I actually have, and I found that when I was able to start to let go deeper into it, your words during the Icaros went from actual language to more of like a glossolalia. Like it wasn't language. It wasn't, well, at least it wasn't like English anymore. And maybe that was just my perception of it, or that was really happening. Was that really happening? That's my question to you. Like as I was letting myself drift deeper into it, your language would shift from this words to sounds. It was different. But then when I was struggling and I'd come out of it, it would shift back to words again. Then you'd help me go back in, and then your languaging would shift again. Does that make any sense at all to you?
It really does. I mean, I think it's going to be really hard for people to understand the interconnectedness of all of this,
It's what it is, though.
It really does make tremendous sense. I learned how to be able to hold ayahuasca ceremonies in a place where in the same room, I could be guiding 30, 40, 50 people at the same time. And each person would be saying, I'm having an individual experience of Hamilton, his Icaros, and the shaman there, and also Alberto as well when he was there with me. And I learned how to hold a state of trance and a state of consciousness and a meditative state that was in a field itself. It wasn't so isolated with call and response and this individualization of experience. And so in the live streams, what I did was I expanded my own experience of consciousness to include everybody that was in the ceremony. And sort of as a visualization, what I did was I tried to follow in my imagination, the Wi-Fi signals and the fiber optics to everybody. So I would try to envision like I was here within the earth, and I was trying to find these points of light that represented everybody's nexus of consciousness that was in the ceremony itself. So in my own concentration, I was, speaking to everybody in universal terms, which we all relate to. Like if I mention heart, you have a heart or you're dead. So that's a universal concept. And if I mention time, that is as well. And so I used these universal concepts to tie us all together. And then I would watch in the ceremony and try to feel and perceive literally where everybody was at the same time. And it was sometimes quite a challenge because we had ceremonies with hundreds of people at times, if not thousands. And so, right. It's like, it's not just a stadium with everybody there and you're singing to the stadium. It's like really trying to find everybody and hold everybody together. And I would see these lights in my vision coming on and coming off. And when they were on, it was representing how connected everyone was. And when it was going off, it was where there was struggle. And then I would point the Icaros and what I was doing to that thing that I was perceiving. And I just trusted that connection was real. And right. I said, I'm pioneering this. I'm inventing this. I'm trying to extend the shamanic beyond the difficulties that some people have in being able to just travel halfway around the world to go experience an authentic form of shamanism. And I was really interested in this modern concept and expression of it. And so I really didn't know how it was going to turn out when I started to do this. And in the ceremonies, I set really strong intention to be able to maintain that connection. And your stories just validate, the nature of experiences that I had. So I really appreciate that. And thank you for sharing.